Hey everybody, welcome to the very first ever Fitness, Food, and Fun. It's a chat with Andy Mack. It's a very casual setting here. We're going to be connecting with all sorts of people that I find admirable and that I respect. You know, people that I think have a great story, and it's going to be all about them connecting with you. And because this is the first time that we're doing this type of discussion is about being relatable to people. So Kevin's going to just be talking really about his story and sharing that. And it's not going to be a technical discussion, which I know that Kevin is actually a great person to be a technical discussion because he could go really far down a rabbit hole with that. But what this is all about is being relatable to you and me and everybody out there. And, you know, nobody's perfect. We all go through our ups and downs when it comes to keeping ourselves healthy and what makes us happy. So starting off with this, I'm going to just give a quick intro for you, Kevin, just high level stuff that I know about you that if you want to add anything to it, because this is your story and your chat, then feel free. But you were obviously the owner of CrossFit Hartford for over 8 years time period. You know, before that, you were the head trainer over at Trinity College. You've been an athlete your whole life. You were a football player, played in college. I know also from an athletics and sports perspective, you've got a son who's pretty knee deep in the hockey world today. So is anything else about you want to share with people just from a background perspective? And if not, that's fine. We can keep moving.
I mean, I would quantify myself as a very successful average Joe when it comes to athletes. I think a couple times in my life, I maybe was out over my skis a little bit in terms of where I was competing and what I was doing. But I think a lot of those opportunities, and I was actually thinking about this earlier when thinking about where our conversation would go, is like my relationship with fitness and how it's at a certain point, fitness became my whole life. But at its origin, my relationship with fitness was always part of a support system of something else I was trying to achieve. When I was a sophomore in high school, I went to a football camp at the University of Dartmouth and Dartmouth College or University of Dartmouth. I don't remember which one it was. And the coach said, he's like, you're tough and you're smart, but you're too small and too weak. So all you need to do is lift weights. And from that moment on, I was consumed. And it's my relationship with fitness and its origin was one out of necessity. I needed it. And then at a certain point, I was able to give it to other people who needed it, I guess would be the best way to describe it. But, you know, football, wrestling, lacrosse, a little bit MMA in there, not in the cage fighting, but training fighters and doing a lot of the in-gym training style stuff, a lot of grappling. I grappled a lot for about like a 6 to 8 year period in my 20s and early 30s, part-time hobby. And then, you know, other times it got more serious. But yeah, I've been lucky enough to survive different careers in different sports. And without question, the thing that helped me be successful in all of those places was my relationship with fitness going into that sport. You know, it was always the catalyst, the conduit for me. I was not a great athlete, and I have a saying as a coach when it comes to like strength and conditioning. Talking about just athletes here, the weight room and strength and conditioning will make a bad athlete good. It'll make a good athlete great. It'll make a great athlete unstoppable. And wherever you fall on that spectrum, and there's a lot of nuance and gray area there. Fitness, exercise, strength and conditioning, it will propel you or hold you where you belong, depending on how much you invest in it.
So I think one of the most interesting things that you brought up that strikes me is your perspective, right? Because I think as people within fitness, especially when it comes to athletics, knowing where you are in comparison to your competitors, your teammates, and so forth, kind of the rack and stack. That's where all the anxiety comes into things, right? But it seems like you found a really good way to find comfort in knowing exactly what your facilities or what your capabilities are. And the other big thing that I'd like you to tell us a little more about, because you started getting into it, is how that experience for you, learning and knowing where you kind of racked and stacked. And then what is fitness in your life? And I know that's a threefold question.
From going from an athlete to a coach, and my primary function as a coach with strength and conditioning is that oh man, yeah, I mean I'll get that's a pretty spiritually deep question, but fitness in my life, and this is a word I used a few minutes ago, has been the catalyst through my young adult and teenage years for everything that I wanted to achieve. Whether it was as an athlete, achieving my goals and sort of building myself up and utilizing those tools to eventually becoming part of the fitness business industry. And then, my goals as a young adult changed in terms of what I was setting out to do and what my responsibilities and obligations were, right, as a family. It became a very fitness in my life has been an absolute defining experience. I joke with my father all the time, Andy. It's funny. And I wonder how this will play out with my kids too. And Coach Balkan as well. Is when I was a little kid, my father used to take me to the reservoir in West Hartford, and he would run and he would make me chase him. And I hated it, but we would do it. And then when I was in high school, in order to help me sort of stay focused during the day, we would run from our house in the West End over by, for those of you who are familiar with it, the Spigot, down to Elizabeth Park and the Rose Garden and back almost every day before school.
No, exactly that route, because I lived right next to the Spigot when I was training for the marathon. That is exactly the route that I would do.
I would argue that occasionally my father used his bike a little more than he needed to, but, he kept me moving on my feet. And, even in my academic life, it was cathartic for me to do that because I went from struggling in certain situations to being able to focus because I had that outlet, as part of my daily routine. And, my first job ever, a lot of people don't know this, my first, on the books job ever, I started when I was a sophomore in high school. I used to clean the weight room and fold towels and clean the bathrooms at the JCC Fitness Center in Bloomfield. And that was my job all through high school. And
that's really
I'd play a little pickup basketball while I was on the clock sometimes, and or get a couple sets of the leg press in, but it's just always been there, and man, I was lucky to have it for sure. It just, fitness in my life is, it has been my life. And it's amazing how much of it is there for people to dive into if it's what they really want. And I think one of the things that CrossFit in particular has done is it's opened the door to that, right? I'm curious of how it's going to play out with my son, right? And my daughter, because for Coach Balkan and myself, our kids were at the gym, for like the first years of their life. Their ideas of fitness are so different of other people's. It's Thomas in particular with some of his youth sports stuff. He's so comfortable with focusing and working hard that it's a skill that is developed in the gym, right? I would say like a structured, challenging fitness environment where like the group mentality of hard work, focused effort to achieve a universal goal is a learned skill, and I think that's one of the things that was one of the greatest things for me to observe from a bird's eye view was to watch adults learn that and have it perfuse their life in other areas, right? Whether it be interpersonal relationships or better outcomes in their careers, right? And there's things that go along with that sort of group effort at high intensity and goal-oriented and structured environments that just, it takes over, it takes on momentum and creates success in all areas. And it's been unique for me to move out of that, right? Where have spent so much time understanding that, you have to displace immediate satisfaction for long-term goals in this game of strength and conditioning or exercise, or you're doomed to fail, right? in one way or another, whether it's burnout or injury or lack of success, that I've come to expect that and understand how that's not just in fitness, but in so many other things, that I think my temperament, in other settings it's unique because of it. So yeah, what is fitness in my life has been everything, it's been absolutely everything. And the other thing is, it's amazing that everybody can take from it what they want, right? Fitness is not this little puddle of water drying up in the summer sun, right? Fitness is the Pacific Ocean, and you can pull up your tanker trucks and fill them up and take them home with you, and everybody still gets what they need.
So I want to try to tie a couple things together here, because I want to expand upon, I feel like we're peeling back the onion just a little bit, but you've said a few things that I think are pretty important, right? You said that this is being fitness is something that you needed. You needed this in your life. You said it was cathartic. And you just talked about two things that I think connect that together in a couple of different ways. You talked about your son and how he's viewing fitness and what it's doing in his life, but how you first learned with adults, and you learned it watching adults go through this growing process of gaining value in their lives from going through fitness.
You and I have had some great conversations about youth sports, and I think what we agree and what science agrees are some of the problems with what's happening with kids. And it's so much more important to teach young kids how to train intelligently, with structure, with purpose, than what it is you have them do when they train. Because all of those things will come in time, right? And I think that having a basic understanding, for my son at least, of what simple movements will always help you get stronger and better at your sports. And so I think that, like, if there's a message to my son or anyone with kids who train, focus on teaching them what the training environment should be like, not what they should be doing when they train. Because if they're training, they're already doing better or more than 999 other kids in the 1,000 that they're measured against, right? And, just sort of quick little rabbit hole. If some guy's telling you he can make your kid better at their sport as a strength and conditioning coach, he's lying. You should go in the other direction. Find coaches who will tell you that they can help your kid get ready to play their sport better, or work with their sport coaches. Let sport coaches teach kids sports. Let strength and conditioning coaches help build kids up to endure and have the stamina to do the training that they need. When it comes to kids, you need to coach character first. You need to coach character first. If your kid is an amazing athlete and a shitty person, he's going to be a shitty athlete when he's older. It's an inevitability that those two roads come back together. So, address the character issues early and teach the behaviors.
This one really is still connected to what I'd really like to hear. And what I know about you is how much you put in just to get him even to practice and things like that. How does that make you feel?
No, I mean, it's the best thing I've ever done. It feels great. It feels great. I've met so many kids who, if at some point somebody had done something like that for their kid, they would have been a better person, a better athlete for it along the way. It's the most rewarding thing I've ever done.
I think that's awesome. And I think that's a really awesome message to pass on to parents. So now I want to move on into the food section here a little bit. And the food is different for everybody. What's food? What's food in your life? Kevin Doyle's life. What's food?
Food in my life has been a timeline of irresponsible decision making.
For us all.
Food. For majority of my time as a coach, my ability to relate to people nutritionally was my biggest weakness, and then I would still argue that to an extent that remains true. And the statement you said, well, like, food is different for everybody. Listen to me, everybody listening. You have been eating longer than you've been breathing. Okay. So whatever your habits with food are more entrenched in your subconscious and behavior patterns than how you breathe. Okay. So whether you want to believe that or not, that's fine with me. But, look at from the time you were conceived, what came first, and, what you eat. And those things, that's where like food is different for everyone. Man, if that's not the truest thing ever. And then there's these things like paleo, ketogenic, South Beach diet, the Atkins, right? All of these things, Weight Watchers, right? All of these things. You know what the truth is, that no one really wants to admit, is that all of them work. They all work, just not for everybody, right? And again, both of those things in general are unsustainable on infinite timelines. And so people, when it comes to food, guys, when it comes to food, be reasonable. Don't make it socially awkward for yourself or anyone else, right? Like if you find yourself socially impinged because you can't be in a room where other people are eating things that aren't part of your current food selection choices, right? Think about what you're really trying to do, right? Because I think you can, at the beginning and the end of every day, right? Fitness and exercise for adults as a leisurely pursuit. Leisurely pursuits, baby, is designed to help you become a better version of yourself, right? It's very quick. It happens very quick on the back of success, where when you get so restrictive and so structured that you'll begin to impact yourself in ways that are negative, that can be psycho-emotional or socio-emotional, and deter your performance in other areas of life. So and that exists.
This is one of the things I actually want to point out about you now, because I know you and I know you from a coach's perspective. Now, I'm going to say this because you were a CrossFit coach, and when you come into CrossFit, you come into the CrossFit world, it's nutrition, perfect nutrition. And you start thinking, man, the only way, because when you first come in, the exercise is so intense, it's so ravaging that you think you need to follow this perfect regimen of diet. But one of the things that you've done, and you did, I think for me and probably for a whole lot of people, was you made it relatable. You made it comfortable. You talk to people sometimes, and sometimes you'd be like, hey, eat a brownie. Sometimes you need it, and maybe that's what you need for your energy beforehand. And I just kind of want to say, in your life, what is food in your life, and like what really gave you that sort of mentality to be able to put other people at ease like that?
Honestly, coaching kids in morning training sessions. Coaching high school and college kids in morning training sessions. You got a kid who shows up in the morning at 5 o'clock in the morning, which isn't easy to do. You get a high school or college kid who's willing to do that, and then they're just getting wrecked, right? Should I tell that kid to eat a Snickers bar? Is that good for his long-term health? Is the inflammatory effects of the sugar and how his glucose is going to respond to that, is that good for him long-term? No. But are some calories in that situation better than no calories? Absolutely. Absolutely. Right? And watching athletes try to be successful and suffer led me to the conclusion that in certain situations, right, some food is more important than no food, right? And when you're done training and you would pull out of that parking lot, there was Denny's, a McDonald's, a Dunkin' Donuts, a Taco Bell, a Popeyes, a Burger King, a Wendy's, all within 2 miles of the place, let alone a Chinese takeout, a pizza place, and a Subway. The world's got a plan for you, right? That food is there for the taking. You become vulnerable to that plan, right?
I'm going to make a segue for us here into the fun section, right? So a couple of things. What's food like for the Doyle family, in the Doyle household? And nobody's perfect, right? And plus, maybe you're big foodies, and people want to hear about that. And how much is food part of your fun? And then we're fitness, food, and fun. And maybe there's a tie-in on how you look at all these things. Do you need to eat well to have fun? Is food fun for you? Is fitness fun for you?
What does food in the Doyle house look like? Generally one of two things. My wife is actually an incredible cook, and she's very conscientious in terms of like healthy food and choices, especially for the kids. When the kids were younger, we were very actually strict about like organic and things like that for them. I would say about 50% of our grocery items are like gluten-free organic items. We do pretty good with that. My wife in general is like, she's the chef of the house, mostly because when it comes to the comparison, like the kids will make jokes about when daddy's going to cook. Unless we're outside on the grill. When we're outside on the grill, that's a completely different situation. But in general, my wife is the person who drives the food, and her family in particular, they have a very long-standing tradition of, cooking at home, preparing meals that are well balanced. Most nights when it's my turn to cook, the question is, where would you like me to order food from tonight? As a matter of convenience. But yeah, I would say like we have a pretty like classic home cooked meal stuff. Like tonight we're having chicken soup and like a vegetable stir fry and something else. During the holidays and stuff, we generally tend not to cook as much, I think, which is the case with anybody. But like, it's okay if you gain 5 pounds during the holiday, guys. Like you go all the places, everybody's drinking, eating cookies. Like it's okay. Like trust your training. You can get that 5 pounds off. Don't eat like it's the holiday week, 52 weeks out of the year.
So that actually ties me in a little bit to what are your splurgy things, or what are your vices? And I like that you just told people, hey, it's okay, because that's what we're here to do, right? And like make some things feel normal and not be in a perfect world. So let's talk a little bit about when you fall off the rocker and then how you come back on.
Yeah, I mean, like, and I think that's part of the sustainability, like your life choices thing, right? Like, if you are living in this super restrictive format, you're either going to become miserable or quit, right? Because when you go to a birthday party and there's birthday cake, like you should be able to have cake, unless it's like you can't have your gluten, you have super celiac disease, and like you can't have gluten ever, right? Like then to have a piece of chocolate, there's don't put yourself in positions where you can't eat anything that society has determined are social foods that we all enjoy to celebrate things. Like food is symbolic, right? And when your life decisions are so restrictive that you have to avoid social norms, right? Like that's not healthy. That's unhealthy in another way. And yeah, like eat a piece of cake, have some ice cream. For years, the joke was ice cream couldn't be in the house because I would eat it, right? That's not the case anymore. But if I had to say, what are my splurge things? Like, what do I like to like, or just ignore what I know is good for me? I love Chinese takeout. I love it. So, twice a month or something, like we'll get some Chinese takeout. But in terms of my favorite food, like if I had a perfect meal, I would say like a bone-in ribeye with sauteed green beans and like a side salad. That's perfect for me. That's my perfect meal right there. As long as it's paired with at least, anywhere from 2 glasses to 2 bottles of red wine.
Perfect. So this is a great segue. I see the smile on your face, the excitement that you get when you start talking about your splurgy items. Let's talk about fun. What's fun in your life? Let's talk about what puts a smile on Kevin's face.
I mean, it's actually a tough question for me. I think you know me well enough to know that, like, even in a bad situation, I'll be the one sort of having a little bit of fun,
Having fun in a phone booth.
Yeah, I mean, I'd be the guy making the jokes about it. I don't know. That's actually a hard question for me because the truth is I feel like I have so much damn fun, it's unfair. You know, there's some things that I used to do that were a lot of fun for me that I miss, in terms of athletics. Those are all things that as this COVID stuff starts to wrap up, I mean, the joy I found in competitive sports is unrivaled in terms of personal, individual enjoyment, in terms of what's fun. And anytime I get to go spend an hour in a boxing ring with Coach Balkan, that's one of my best times, I could think of in terms of current situations. And yeah, I love sports. I love competition. And I do some silly stuff too. I play video games. A lot of people don't know that. I've been a secret gamer, or maybe not so secret, but thought I was a secret gamer. I like to play little video games. Not as much in the past year. Things have been so busy for the past year, and it's sort of redirected so many things. But when it comes to just like what I'm gonna do, if I'm alone and I'm gonna have a little bit of fun, I'm gonna play little video games, go box with my good friend Coach Balkan. Those would be the two things that I chose to do. Right? If something's not fun, you're not gonna do it. Right? You don't have to wed a perfect union between nutrition and fitness and your fun. You don't. It can be its own sort of lane of things, and be okay with that. Be reasonable about your goals, be reasonable about your expectations of yourself. And if you're not flexible or adaptable, you're being unrealistic. Don't be antisocial, right? Don't ever make any one of those things antisocial, whether it's your fitness, your fun, or your food, right? Make sure that they are all adding and enhancing not only your physical health, but your mental and social health and well-being as well, right? That's the trick in the CrossFit gym, right? Is the social, emotional stuff plays a big part in the success. I would encourage people to make sure that those choices come from that perspective.
And at this point in the world where we're coming to the end of one of the most notorious years in history of 2020, I think feedback like that is really important for people to help them on a daily basis. So in closing, I just want to say thank you very much for being the very first guest on Fitness, Food, and Fun. I think you brought a lot of great perspective. I think it's really important for people to understand the crux and the basis of your message is be balanced and enjoy yourself, and you'll accomplish the things in life that are going to make you happy. That's ultimately like what we're trying to do here, and to be relatable to everybody out there. So I really appreciate your perspective.
Yeah. Only a Sith deals in absolutes. So keep that in mind, right? And make yourself better and have fun. And that's the key. And it's a great message. It's a great message to share. Great talking to you, my friend.
Hope everybody enjoys this episode. Well, this is our first one, and we hope to just keep on rolling them out there and adding great content for you.